is kind of a little bit in sharper focus for this meeting is we had extensive discussions about the ideas, and they're actually going into 3 buckets. There's the Fly Quiet program, there's noise abatement procedures, and there's the work plan, which are possible items to be considered later. So today we're really going to focus much more on the Fly Quiet program. Does it fit or not fit? And if it doesn't fit, we will put it in the other 2 buckets for discussion at a later time, but we're not going to spend as much time as we did at the first meeting, now that we understand kind of what the lay of the land is. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, so well, of course, we're all very curious, but we shouldn't delve into the work plan. Let's do that at a future TWG decision. Okay, so that's the game plan. And the first element, Chair O'Connell, there was a public comment about the Woodside procedure, and Van asked if she could answer it. Can we answer that question now? Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. Van, do you remember the question? It was about the descent for the Oceanic Woodside, if there was a way to have more stair step down.
Yes. And the answer is yes. Right now, there is a optimized profile descent, the pirate arrival. It isn't being really flown as that right now. Right now it's being air traffic is controlling it, and they are issuing hard altitudes, and they're stopping all the aircraft at 10,000 feet, and then they're handing them off to the approach control, who is then stair stepping them down. So there is not a real optimized flight path for this procedure. However, it could be. It was originally designed as one, and it could be turned back into one, but it would take a design. It needs to go back into the design process.
Okay, great. So just so I'm clear for the notes, because we want to be explicit, this is under ATC control, so it's not the Fly Quiet program, and it is something that could be considered for a future work plan item. So that's the formal summary of this particular item, and we can move on unless someone has any other questions on that one.
I think we could go forward.
Okay.
I see Marie Jo has her hand raised.
Yes, I do have a quick question for Than. Given that the OPD is not flown today on Oceanic on Parrot, could the FAA revert to the previous procedure?
No, unfortunately, the previous procedure, well, there was an actually United designed one that is no longer available, and then the one that this really replaced was also ATC controlled, so it wouldn't do. But the one that you're thinking of, the OPD that was there, is no longer available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're now moving on to the next item, which is the gap. This is the gap early turns, and this is for departures. And I think part of the conversation last time we started a little bit. What I remember is we said it's under ATC control, and it wasn't a noise abatement procedure. Is that correct?
It's partially noise abatement procedure. It's definitely ATC control though, so it's not going to be Fly Quiet.
Okay, all right, so that goes into the work plan. Moving right along.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the feedbacks at the last meeting is that we should divide Gap Santana into night and day, because there were very different aspects to it. So we did that in the slide set compared to the last meeting, and so this is night. And I think it's the same question. It's ATC, and is it a noise abatement procedure?
It is, again, it's partially noise abatement procedure, but it definitely is ATC.
Okay. And I guess one question about the Fly Quiet, though, you had mentioned there's a lot of drift happening, meaning pilots somehow are cutting the corner. Is that a possibility for the Fly Quiet or not? I'm just trying to understand if we created another nuance here.
The drift was actually in air traffic, not so much the pilots. The pilots may be requesting early turns, but air traffic would have to be approving it. So, it could be both. Pilots could be requesting it, and so maybe, reminders on how you want that flown, but it's really more air traffic drift.
So I think we'll, just for purposes of the summary, we'll put it in the Fly Quiet program and the work plan. Because it is a possibility.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
While we're on it though, is Brisbane or not? Is Brisbane benefiting or not benefiting? We had a question mark on Brisbane. Does anybody know?
On the Santana?
Night, yeah.
Oh, the night.
Santana
Well,
for night,
Santana
at night, yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. Santana at night, yes, for sure.
Okay,
Now, if they do the right turn for the truck in or cleared on what looks like a truck in from the Santana, no.
okay. All right, so I think we have our summary. It's funny, we can come up with more and more varieties, but it sounds like it's a Fly Quiet program because we want the pilots to do the request and it's a work plan. That's the formal summary.
Yes,
Okay,
I agree.
all right, moving along.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
I agree with everybody else.
Yeah, does everyone good? Seems straightforward. Okay, next one is we have Santana Day. Again, Than's input was separating the two. And this is a Fly Quiet or Than, who has control over this Santana during the day, which has a
Again, this is air traffic, and it's not, there is no noise abatement during the day, really and pilot requests, because the daytime traffic volume is so much higher, I don't even think the pilot requests are going to play much into that.
okay. So this sounds like, it also sounds like there's no work plan needed here. So this kind of is exiting the,
Sounds like there's no real.
yeah, sounds like there's no need for it to fit in any of the buckets at this point.
Correct.
Okay,
Not Fly
Fly
Quiet.
quiet. And the reason I say that is because if the aircraft actually stay offshore, it does help the San Francisco Daly City citizens.
so just confirming, Than, I think Than's input, or if I understood, the pilot doesn't have control, it's all ATC.
Yeah, so what Bert, and I don't know if I heard you 100% correctly. What I would recommend on this one is that it become part of a noise abatement procedure, that the airport requests air traffic to handle this one differently. During the daytime, I don't think this is a pilot's requesting to turn early and air traffic approving it because the pilot requested it. If air traffic's turning them early, it's most likely due to traffic. And so we'd want to look at what air traffic is doing and then build a noise abatement procedure around it.
Okay.
Okay, so revision, good conversation. So it is a work plan item with a future noise abatement procedure.
Just so I'm clear, were we talking, Dan, was that recommendation for nighttime procedure? Or was that?
No. For day. Nighttime procedure, there really already is. There is a noise abatement procedure, and we were kind of talking about how it might be drifting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, everybody good on that one?
Yes.
So just to be clear that.
I have a comment. Sorry. I want to be clear with Than. When you're thinking about Santana daytime to be part of a noise abatement procedure now, are you talking again about the 6 miles gate that they have to go through that gate before they turn?
And the altitude. So, there's altitude, there's when they can turn, and then also how they vector them. So there are no other noise abatement procedures that if they need to vector them, that they keep them over the ocean and then take them up over the Golden Gate. So, it's that noise
Okay,
abatement.
that combination, correct.
Yeah.
But in your experience, can you have 2 different noise abatement procedures, one for day and one for night? Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and then we have Brisbane as a yes, just as part of that. Right.
So that's work plan, right?
Work plan in for future NAP specifically. Wow, moving along. We learned a lot last time. Okay, so let's see if I have this right. So the gap early turns was work plan. And then Santana J was fly quiet program and work plan. And then the night was work plan. Okay, so we can
Hold
see-
on. I think on the gap early turns, I heard Than say it's definitely ATC.
The other way around.
Right, the night hasn't been.
So the gap early turns is a decision.
The day could not.
One day is noise abatement procedure and work plan.
Yeah. But the early turns is work plan. Correct? Early
No, I
turns-
think it's if Than, I mean, Than can correct me, but she said
Oh, I
clearly
think
it's
that's right.
definitely ATC.
I thought sorry about that.
So
First one,
we've discussed three so far.
Yes.
The gap
Yeah, so
early
during-
turns.
Yeah, so what we did say is that the only fly quiet portion of it would be like you have on there, the pilot's not requesting an early turn, but it's always ATC controlled. The pilots are never going to turn early on their own.
Correct, yeah.
But I think that then the partially pilots makes it partially fly quiet program. I guess.
Right.
We would incentivize them
Yeah.
not to ask for the early turn, and we would like to incentivize ATC not to give it to them if they don't have to.
So it's both fly quiet
So it's
program
negative.
and work plan.
And
I-
work.
That's why I just
The
want to
work plan
clarify.
is very, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's confusing because when we say no ATC control, we're also saying the pilot has some element of control, which makes it a work or a fly quiet program possibility.
But I'm still trying to understand what would be in the work plan. You're not changing the procedure there. You would be talking to ATC and possibly also talking to pilots. So what would
Yeah,
be in the
so-
work plan for the Santana, for the early turns?
The work plan is whatever follow-up is needed to work with ATC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's
So it's-
fine.
For the next 5 years is.
Yeah, if there's any direction to ATC to influence them, that is the work plan action item. It's not gonna happen described here.
And Marie Jo, one of the things that we talked about after the meeting was that we really want to focus on fly quiet here. The last meeting, we
Yes.
didn't cover a lot of elements. So if it doesn't qualify for fly quiet, it falls off the table. We don't
Right.
have to pursue it anymore. We can talk about it at another meeting at another time. This is exclusively fly quiet. So if we can eliminate it from fly quiet, that's a valuable decision. Also,
Okay, so just so we're all on the same page, because the oceanic discussion is kind of related to this. So the gap early turns is a work plan, fly quiet.
Mhm.
The Santana Day is work plan to do a NAP, future NAP.
Mhm.
And the nighttime is a work plan with similar to the early turns with the fly quiet program element. Both,
I think it's both. Yeah,
Yes,
the nighttime is both.
yes. Okay,
correct.
everybody there? Okay,
Mhm.
so Marie Jo, do you want to cover the gap oceanic then? Because that's part of the gap family.
Yes, so the gap oceanic before in the previous in the current flight quiet program, there is the gap departures, and it was all altitudes gates, and it was applied to all three procedures: the oceanic departures, the early turn south, and the Santana going north. So given that we have now extracted the gaps, the Santana departures as well as the early turns to the south, we propose to have now only one element, which would be on the gap oceanic departures, which are the ones that go basically to Asia pretty much. And so the thing is, on this one, they go straight out of 28 and they go through the gap. Is the criteria there just to try to have higher altitudes? And that's the question, because it's unclear what criteria they can be. And of course, it's also quite dependent on the aircraft, because a long haul heavy aircraft will not climb the same way as a short haul lighter plane. So maybe Bert or Jean or Than, you can talk about this a little bit about that gap oceanic departure. Does this make sense? What's the issue today also? Are they not meeting the procedure? Is there an ATC constraint, etc.?
Well, as far as the origination of the gap departure ranking, it was trying to make sure that the aircraft climbed as high and as quickly as possible based on specific aircraft type and weight. So we knew for a fact that a fully loaded airplane going over to, say, Asia or whatever, Australia, was not going to perform as well as the same aircraft going from, say, here to LA. The one going to LA was going to climb like a homesick angel. And so it was a way for us to grade airlines based on how they perform. We had a lot of airlines work with us over the past to make improvements, and they did. We saw a lot of good improvements by airlines specifically analyzing with our help each flight and then homing in on perhaps a specific aircrew. And we left that up to them, but they were able to narrow it down that way, or a specific fleet type that was problematic.
So who has control for this? The pilot, or is we just learn the climb rate?
If an air traffic controller gives them a limiting altitude, the aircraft will stay below that altitude. If they clear them to a higher altitude earlier, they climb earlier. But the one thing we did find in working with Emirates on the 777 fleet, that aircraft, as it was, there was a hard altitude of 3,000 feet out there. The aircraft would get to 1,000 feet, start to nose over and do a shallower climb so that they didn't go blowing through the 3,000 feet. Now, that was them. It varies by aircraft, by the FMS computer on board, and the manufacturers of those.
So do they do that for fuel purposes?
No, they do it to make sure they don't blow through the altitude at the end
I see.
and get an APC violation.
And what does that do for noise when they do a shallower climb?
Some people will tell you it drags the noise out. Other people will tell you that it can be a little bit quieter, but they're lower. And so closer to the ground, louder.
So aren't primarily these gap oceanic departures trans-Pacific, aren't they? I mean, I'm looking at the tracing here and there's not many of them, first of all. There's not a lot of flights.
We have a decent amount,
But
they don't all go straight. Some of them go north to go the Great Circle Route over Alaska, things like that.
But they're primarily heavy aircraft.
Primarily, yes.
So we don't have a lot to do with, I mean, you know, it's hard to take a Greyhound bus that's struggling to get altitude and incentivize them to get higher faster. It's like, go faster, Greyhound. It's not gonna, it's floored. It's wide open.
We've been able to get some airlines to squeeze another 20 feet out of it. And is that big? No. But by the time they get out towards the end of it, it's more so. Yeah, it adds up because we have 4 gates there.
The gates to me sound more important than anything else. But you're getting.
This might be related to something you said at the last meeting, if I understood it. Let's just say that the different airlines program their variation in the FMS system, right? Which will direct what they're doing here. Do you feel like we could influence that if we found out that obviously certain airlines were doing it a certain way and other airlines doing other ways? They had the same size aircraft, which is what Bert was saying. I think you had mentioned something about that. I just want to make sure I
We have had that happen in the past, yeah.
Okay.
Where, you know, they all have the same procedure, but for some reason some are louder than others. And,
yes.
you know, what we did in that case was tell all the airlines together and talked about what they were doing and found out what the quiet ones were doing. And were able to almost mimic that.
That's great.
So you can. Things are quite different today than it was 15 years ago when we did that successfully. So it's still possible, but I don't know that there's as much variation today as there was then either.
But that's what we could figure out, right?
Right.
Yes.
Ask a real quick question. Looking at this tracing over here, how much bang for the buck are we gonna get if this is something we incorporated in the Fly Quiet 2.0?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally just, there's
One-
a couple impacted areas, it looks like, I mean, obviously Brisbane, South San
Well,
Francisco.
but Bert pointed out there's more flights than
No,
show.
We're not doing-
This is Pacific,
Yeah.
Daly City.
this is
Yeah, it's truly the gap.
Community team.
Okay.
We're on a.
So Bruno, South City,
Yeah, Gap.
is, and
Dan, do you have any perspective? You haven't said anything.
Well, not so much about the aircraft. I do think I found that interesting. I didn't know that they were doing it so differently. I do know that we have seen them start to level off early, and it is exactly they don't want to bust through because if they're stopped at 3,000, obviously for the runway 1 departures that are turning over, and so it is air traffic that's keeping them low. And there is already a noise abatement procedure about when they can vector them and when they can turn them and trying to keep them over the ocean, but it's only a nighttime noise abatement. It's not a daytime noise abatement. So I'm not, other than what Bert was saying of maybe, and like you said, maybe researching aircraft types and trying to get everyone on board to maybe fly it the same way. I don't really have any suggestions on this one.
Well, one question to your comment, you said there's a noise abatement at night, but not during day. Is this variation still applicable day and night, regardless of the noise abatement procedure? I mean, this variation we want to explore, is that something we should look at for both day and night or only day?
Yeah, you'd probably want to look at it for both day and night, and it wouldn't impact. It's definitely entirely the airplane and the pilot. Air traffic is just stopping them at 3,000, and how they're getting there is not. They're not paying attention.
Okay, so this is interesting. This is a split day and night, and it's a Fly Quiet program.
Would the fly quiet element be here, in this case B, we identify which airlines are not adapting to the right FMS system,
Or which ones have a quieter?
and they would be incentivized to do that, a quieter.
well,
That sounds like a hard thing to do. I think.
yeah, it's a hard sell.
And I'm not sure who to
Once an
pick up the
airline
phone and-
commits to Collins equipment versus Honeywell,
Yes,
they're married.
they're not gonna, they don't care what I have to say.
Right.
Isn't there variation though, regardless of what system they have, how they program it? You know what I mean?
There are,
Yeah.
there are ways of tricking your equipment to mimic another airline's procedure or another equipment's handling of a procedure.
Yeah.
They all have little nuances, and the nice thing about it is most of the airline technical people know about it. And if you say, "Oh, hey, an early level off, can we get it to be a little higher?"
Do what Emirates is doing.
They
Yeah.
can say, "Yeah,
That's what-
we can work."
That's what we want them to do.
I think, I think this could be an interesting exploratory thing to look at, because if we found out who is flying it quietest, right? There's wide body, whatever the different aircraft are, who's flying it quietly and what's the difference between them and others, then that would be interesting for us to know and see if, maybe it only lasts 3 years and we get them all do the right thing. But you know what I mean? I think it's still interesting to learn that.
And right now, we're scoring this on when they hit the gates and
At
their
each gate,
their
altitude,
altitude and decibels.
just
So just the altitude.
yeah. Exceedances are a separate grading category. Noise exceedances.
And there's one of those too.
Yes.
It sounds like it should be split day and night though, for the fans' comment, no?
Okay. I'm not gonna argue. I'm just gonna say that we do them all right now.
Be interesting to see though if there's any, if there was variation, right? If there was, because one is a noise abatement procedure during the, not, or they,
It's been asked a couple times already too. What's the benefit? Is there much more that we can get out of doing this just because it worked 10 years ago.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
are we
Yes,
expecting to get improvement?
right.
Yep.
And I'm not convinced that we
Okay,
can. I mean, one of the things is if they're held down at 3,000 feet,
correct.
that's an ATC thing, but then how the airlines accommodate that could be them.
Bert,
But-
do you feel like that there's some data that SFO knows with what you know today, where we can kind of answer that question, which is, can we really get any more? I mean,
You probably heard me tell the story of Singapore and Cathay.
yes,
Cathay was operating the 747-400 with the Rolls-Royce engines, and we compared them to Singapore, who operated within an hour of their departure, and found out that the only difference was the Pratt & Whitney engines that they used. Turned out later, Cathay bought Pratt & Whitney powered aircraft and were able to make the change.
right.
But that's a rare.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'm not sure that justifies that
No, it doesn't.
element, yeah.
But I'm just saying that we were able to figure it out. Took a lot of work, but we figured it out.
But do you have any data to Gene's question, which is it worth it to pursue this, or have we gotten what we have? I mean, obviously the program started pre-next gen, 20 something years ago. It's
2002.
right.
But we also don't want to not do it to where they then backslide and start flying lower, right? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Typically airlines want to get up to cruise as quickly as they can.
Right.
So the only reason they wouldn't be doing that today is that 3,000 foot limit that ATC is putting on them.
Right.
And how they go about reaching that limit. Because, there's many ways of doing that. They could just nose down, keep the power up, which means their speed is going to
We
go.
lose the people there.
No, they're still there.
So
They're-
to nose down, keep the power up, and you're just going to increase speed. And then the other way is to reduce power and put the nose down, and then you're going to go slower out. And it's not known easily whether it's quieter, one of those or the other.
Maybe we can
Right.
find out.
Well, the thing is that having that noise monitor and doing it on noise is probably the most beneficial.
I
rather than
agree.
by altitude.
I actually, at the end of this presentation, there was one of those is being proposed, which is maybe using monitoring for some of the.
So what I'm hearing real quick, just to make sure we're all keeping on track, is that we don't want to slide back into people not performing these procedures over the different gates, the 4 different gates, correct? And that ATC is the limiting factor of where they say, hey, this is the limit you can climb to. So when I'm looking at this, the areas that are being impacted are some of the areas right now that are complaining the most with the repavement, because there's a lot more flights that are going over them right now.
Mhm.
So I would imagine that this would probably be beneficial to put into the Flight Quiet 2.0 program. I know, Gene, you're saying, how much can we really influence this with the ATC and the limit? I don't know, but it seems like it might be worthwhile to continue to track this thing, especially if there's a lot of flights that are going over these areas right now. So that way they're not going any lower. Does that
So-
sound fair? Or?
The thing I would add to that, Steve, is that I think Gene brings up a different, a point that builds on that, which is maybe we should look at noise level, because we have monitors there. So-
Yeah, the ground-based
Yeah.
noise.
So using the noise level versus
Planes that are on-
noise monitor versus altitude, because then that will give us insight to the different airlines and who's flying it differently. Yeah, it's diagnosing it.
So is it basically we'd be scoring it differently with those monitors versus the altitude?
Well, right now you're doing 2 scorings.
Yep.
One, when you exceed a noise level, you get a bad score.
Yep.
And then the other is when you are low in altitude, you get a bad score.
But we're not looking at.
I have a clarifying question here. Are we talking about trying to do an element for the first 3,000 feet of climb, given that ATC control that level? they can keep them at 3,000 feet as long as they want. That's a TC decision. That's not an FQP. So are we clearly talking about the climb rate between leaving a runway to the 3,000 feet level? Is that the objective?
One thing we told the airlines to get their buy-in and make it simple, climb as high and as quickly as possible over the airport. So if you can stand it on its tail, get it going to as high as you can, and then nose over, pull the power back over the airport, that's going to be a quieter departure.
So it's
Okay.
that.
So the thing is now, if that's a good simplification. Do you have noise monitors that could really capture these differences? Because you need to do it in that portion of the flight to really have meaningful results.
We do.
There's
You do?
5.
We have 5 or 6 out the gap.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we could do an FQP just on that climb rate up to the 3,000 feet. Because beyond that, I think it would be really hard to blame pilots or airlines, given that ATC is the one that clears them above 3,000 feet. So they don't control that all the time.
I think the only question is, do we need to split day and night? Would that be useful? Is the NAP at night making a difference if you blend it off? You know what I mean? If you're drawing conclusions.
I don't think you do, because the 3,000 is all the time. And remember that this is the Gap departure, the San Francisco departure, and the Santana. They're all stopped at 3,000 feet.
Right.
So if you
Okay.
find a way of making that initial climb quieter, there's additional benefit on all of those.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So this is a very interesting one, even though there was an NAP at night, not during the day, it doesn't matter. We're still talking about looking at the climb rate and what the noise level is. And it's a F5 fly quiet program.
Yeah, this is worthwhile because it affects other flights, air flight issues.
Okay.
But just to be clear, Bert, that's what's currently being done, right? So we're just basically keeping the same.
We're not doing the altitude, so I don't think.
But
Yeah,
the
we are.
3,000 feet, that's the climb.
Well, I think,
You somehow have to monitor that first 3,000 feet
yeah,
With the noise,
right.
with the
Noise
altitude as well.
Yes.
Because how they get to altitude there.
So we monitor altitude at each gate. Period. Now, we also monitor noise level in a separate report called exceedance.
But I don't think we want to do it as an exceedance. Don't we want to do it as stack rank, understanding what airlines and who's loud and who's not? You see what I'm saying? That was the whole.
Yeah, I think what you want is look at, for instance, all the 777s that are on the particular procedure and just compare their noise levels at the same monitor. And that's it. And then you do that also for whatever the A380s or whatever aircraft they use. And that's how you can compare. But you have to look at their noise levels at the same location for an aircraft type.
Yeah, until we have a baseline of what we think should be the best, system or whatever. I don't think we should go into the noise exceedance. We should go into the stack ranking to understand how well the different airlines are doing noise-wise. Loudest.
And I would add, you do it also by procedure, because there's a huge difference going to Melbourne versus going to, I don't know, Toronto or something. It's not the same aircraft, so therefore.
Much difference for the first 3,000 feet of climb.
Do you hear that, Marie Jo?
I couldn't hear that, sorry.
There may not be that much difference for the first 3,000 feet of climb.
Okay, yeah.
It's in the procedure.
Well, then the data will show that. But from a weight perspective, they may want to save fuel. I don't know. Again, that's I'm not an airline. I don't know. But
So, Bert, I think there's a slight difference. I mean, help me out, Bert and Jean. I don't think this is exactly what we're doing, what we've discussed here, which is what's been done in the past. I think we want stack rank the noise level. This is a noise exceedance level, and whoever makes it above that. We're trying to granularly understand who's flying quiet or not.
I think at that point, we're looking at such high noise levels that we're getting it with the exceedances. is the exceedance thresholds were set so that we actually caught aircraft. It got to the point where under the old exceedance program, we were catching no one. So we went through and brought down levels. We actually added in a nighttime penalty, dropping it by 10 decibels more so that we were able to catch more.
But how do we understand what this FMS discussion we're talking about, the flight management system, how we be able to understand as an output to this, what the different stack rank airlines are for this particular element, not at noise exceedance level, but noise level. See what I'm saying?
Well, I'm actually thinking that we stick with an exceedance level. We do it based on a percent of flights that exceed a certain level, right? It should be set at 90, should it be set at 70? I don't know. Look back at the data to see what a reasonable exceedance is, because then those are the ones that you can do something about, because they must be doing something different, unless it's all one aircraft type, which we would do the analysis for. But I think sticking with an exceedance makes sense, and then you
Go back and look at.
well, how the pilot then has control to make it a flight program is that you then work with those operators to stop them from exceeding that.
So you're saying you're using the exceedance level to go to the people that are not making it to see what the delta is.
Right.
And you're going to be able to figure out the delta by how? How are you going to figure out? All you know is you're louder. You don't know why, right?
You look for outliers. So if you see a group of aircraft, say, best example I can give is we did the A throughput, one particular aircraft type. When it was brand new, only one aircraft carrier operated it. So we used them as our template to come up with the bell curve. Well, as other carriers ended up operating that aircraft, we found the original operator wasn't doing so well, and the others were beating him out. So we ended up having to shift the bell curve over. So things like that happen. You look for outliers based on.
All right. So I think what is confusing is just because one part during the night is an NAP, we're going to disregard that and focus on it as a fly quiet element and look at the climb.
I think you look at the noise.
Yeah, the noise level.
Rather than the climb, because
The noise level.
noise is going to indicate that they may be doing something different.
Right. That's
And that
noise level
Again,
during the first.
and it's because we're only looking at the first 6 feet of mark, right?
Yes. Yes. We're going to look at the noise level for the first 3,000. How's that?
Well, the one question you asked earlier is how many are doing the Trans-Pacific on this gap departure? So I just pulled up yesterday all day long, and I see 57 flights. A decent number. Of that, looks like we had probably 10 or 12 either do a polar route around the Great Circle. A couple went up towards Washington State, Vancouver maybe. So it looks like about 3 there. The rest of them were doing the Pacific tracks. And for those of you who don't know, there are specific lanes of traffic that air traffic control puts aircraft onto to make sure that they get where they're going in one piece. Because there are sections over the ocean where they're not able to follow.
So let me summarize one thing just so I understand. Today's criteria, Gene, is meet altitude thresholds at 4 different gates with different thresholds for different aircraft categories. Now we're going to look at noise levels
Well,
below 3,000 feet.
remember, you have 2 elements currently. One is just meeting the altitude minimums
Yeah.
or not, and then getting graded if you didn't meet the minimums. And you have noise exceedance, so the top 10% in noise or whatever it is that make that exceedance, you get scored for. The rest
Okay.
get.
So maybe what I need to clarify is I thought the ATC determines the altitude minimum, not the pilot.
ATC determines
Altitude.
the 3,000 foot altitude that they can go to avoid to be under the 1 departures.
Yeah.
And so they can't go any higher than 3,000 feet. What is in the pilot control is how they get to that 3,000.
Climb.
So I
So
think we're
the thing is, I think, yeah,
Measuring
we're just,
altitude
okay,
and
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Well,
Go
that's
ahead.
what we do now, I'm saying. We're measuring altitude because it helped Bert understand why they probably are also being loud. And so you wanted them to be up higher than they were, and you were able to use the altitude gates to get them to climb higher quicker.
Are we doing the same thing though? If you're just measuring the noise, you're figuring out if they're louder during the climb. Do you need to add the altitude element? I guess that's what I'm confused by.
Remember, all I'm saying is what we're doing now.
No, I'm saying
it's-
do
For
we
the
need to keep
future,
doing
I
it?
don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, that's where I'm going. For the future, we're focused on noise and how much noise they're making below 3K. So to me, we're measuring the noise.
My thought is that you start with noise.
Yeah.
And if they break that exceedance, then you score them less, work with them to try to figure out how they can not make those exceedance.
Yes, that's where I was going. So Bert, are you arguing that there should be altitude with that? Because I think I was thinking along those same lines about the noise is where we're going in the future.
I think you'll find the higher they are, the better they perform noise-wise.
If they can't control that, right?
So let me try to understand this.
You figure roughly, pardon me,
Yeah.
you'll find roughly 3 decibels per 1,000 feet of altitude. So if we can get another 1,000 feet out of an aircraft, up to or just shy of that limit, before air traffic control lets them climb higher, then we're achieving a goal.
And that impacts a
A
bunch of
noise
people.
goal. And that is under the pilot's control. I think that's where I was puzzled.
Airline pilot.
Yes, not
Airplane.
ATC.
Right, so you could have an element that isn't noise, that is merely altitude. And what you'd want them to do, because I think what Bert has said a couple times now, is that the faster they get to 3,000 feet,
The
the
better,
quieter it is.
yes.
So what you want to do is
Incentivize.
maybe grade them on how quickly they get to 3,000 feet.
I thought that's what we were doing with the gates. We've got 4 gates which show, the level of climb.
Well, it's a surrogate kind of doing that, I would say.
So let me backtrack this real quick, because I kind of want to move us along, but I want to make sure we get this. We're talking about noise level exceedance. So was your statement, Gene, that we're looking at noise level exceedance? Look at the group that goes through this procedure for that period of time, dock the ones that exceed that noise level, then use the 4 gates of data for those flights to see how the ones that exceeded the noise, if that was a factor or not, or what truly caused it. Because I'm trying to understand how we check this metric. Does that make sense?
I think where we're going around is what is the most effective way to figure it out that they're doing the best thing we want? And the question is it simpler just to say, how quick are they getting to 3,000? Because, the faster they get there, the better. And just leave it at that. You know what I mean? Like, will that be?
And they can't break 3,000, so maybe we
Yeah.
do 2,800.
Yeah. So
Right,
maybe,
so-
I'm just saying, maybe we don't need to make all the other complications. We just say who's fastest to 2,800. And that's the proxy for, that means less noise. That means better climb. I think that this is what we've been trying to get to, is what would be a simpler way to do this.
Simplified.
Yeah. So
I'd like to ask a question to everybody, and I don't have the answer, but the faster they get to 3,000 feet, if they are asked by ATC to stay level, that's extremely noisy as well.
Not
So
necessarily.
so therefore you have to think a little about, yes, you can get them maybe faster to 3,000 feet, and that would benefit the communities right under this very initial climb. But after that, if they level for long at 3,000 feet for all the other communities, that could be, as opposed to continuing on a straight climb. I don't have the answer because noise is a very complex thing, but it would be also interesting to look at the noise data for that.
So no, again, we only have control of this to 3,000 feet. right?
Yes, but you would make them, you would create an incentive for them to be at 3,000 feet earlier so they could level for much longer than before.
Right, so that benefits everybody below 3,000 before they get to 3,000 feet. The people after 3,000 feet, no change.
I guess you're right.
Okay, so
Yeah,
here's my
okay,
summary.
yeah.
Here's my summary. I think we could put it 24 hours. We don't need to split day and night. The separate noise abatement procedure doesn't matter. And that we can use this quickest to the 2,800. Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
We need to work on that metric, I think.
Yes.
You know,
But
it's got to be a measurable,
yeah.
just quickest.
Well, that's what we told the airlines for years.
Yeah.
Climb as high and as quickly as possible over the airport.
The point I made earlier was that these are fully loaded buses for the most part. These are heavy airplanes filled. They're completely filled with fuel. They're completely filled with passengers and baggage. And they're not going to, they're struggling, that's my word, to make altitude. And so I don't know how much impact this is going to have.
Well, there are different ways to depart. For instance, they often use a derated departure, which means they actually don't depart with full thrust, even fully loaded. Their FMS does a calculation with the wind and weather and everything to determine what level of thrust do I need to take off.
What are your odds?
Right. What we want, I think what we're saying here is don't do that.
Get up to 3,000.
Get up to
2,800 as quick as you can.
Yeah. So there are things that are in their control. And I get that they're fully loaded, but they still have options available.
Okay, so the formal summary is fly quiet program, one element, quickest to something below 3K.
Right.
And
Okay.
exceedances, I thought we're still doing exceedances.
I think we're not anymore.
For the nose exceed.
I think this might be
I
a.
think
I'm doing it until you can stop.
I think that's what we're really going for, is
Noise.
noise.
Right, but I think.
Yeah,
We could consider both.
we can still consider both.
Yeah.
So the thing that the exceedance also does for you is aircraft type. Right? Because what if they're flying an older 777 and they could be flying a new 787? You're going to get a lower noise level.
Yep.
So
that is in the airline's control.
that is in the airline's control as to what fleet they use. And that's, I think, the original intent of the exceedance was basically to
Shaming.
shame the people that have the old noisy aircraft.
And that's one
And
reason,
that was its purpose.
that's one reason why cargo carriers still perform poorly. Because they use old retired aircraft and typically, not always, typically, and they're loud.
Okay, so Terry, thank you for adding that. So adding to the summary is the fastest to the under 3K and keep the noise exceedance so that you can understand the aircraft type.
I think that's good. And just for time check for everyone, 7 p.m. And Darlene, I think you said we had 6 more procedures to go through.
Yeah, we
should
need
go.
that. Hopefully that was the most
This one was a little-
gnarly.
This one was a simple one, so let's hope for the best.
All right, stick. Who has control over stick departures? I'm assuming it's not a noise abatement procedure. Van?
So, one thing that might be a fly quiet would be, because RNAV procedures, what's considered compliant, I think it's plus or minus 1 mile. So, they have to get to within a mile of the fix before they start turning. And that's even considered flying over. So how they're flying the procedure can impact the noise on flying the procedure. So it would still, and I don't know if you have data already on this, Bert, or if we know who, but there does seem to be a pretty big variance on when those aircraft are turning. And that is FMS controlled. It's not pilot really, it is FMS controlled, but maybe tightening that down if that's something that can be done. I don't know.
We do know that different FMSs treat it differently. And some of them are a nice tight turn, others are a wide sweeping turn. So, and then there's also options where air traffic controllers are calling the turns because of open traffic, whatever they need to do to get them going out of the way.
So we've come into this before, which is obviously you have a percentage that ATC is, because of traffic or weather or what have you. But for the ones that are left, the pilot has some rep, which is the FMS. Is that what you were saying or not? Okay.
That's not really pilot control. Because so and airlines want the pilots to leave them on the computer because they think the computer flies it better than the pilots do.
Okay, so if it is FMS control, how would you translate that into a potential fly quiet element? Is it or not?
Based on FMS? No.
Okay, so I think sticks out.
Okay. It's an airline decision to reprogram their FMS differently.
We talked about that just a minute ago.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I don't know. Is it a work plan discussion possibly?
That was my next question.
It could be.
So there's no control over this? I mean, this is what really affects us.
Exactly.
They were saying that it's the airline that's programming how the pilot's going to fly the procedure. And so that needs to be looked at as a work plan item because it's loaded for the pilot. The pilot has to do what's loaded into the FMS.
Can I ask a real quick question?
Yeah.
So
So that it just requires discussion and dialogue with the airline to adjust their FMS. Go ahead.
So is the primary reason why they do the stick procedure specifically to save gasoline rather than just bring it out over the Pacific and go down the coastline?
No, it's actually more efficient for air traffic control. I can let Dan tell you all about it, but that's the general.
Okay, so the short answer is just it's more efficient. And when you're saying efficient, it saves the airlines money? Is that basically because of gas and fuel?
Also air traffic control workload.
So they can get more flights in and out of there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or they can handle, or they don't need to handle that particular flight as well.
Okay, so I just make sure we're reinforcing this. It doesn't mean this element isn't important. It's that the pilots don't have control. So
Incentive we can give to get it
we
in.
need to have the airlines create a more ideally quieter FMS loading.
It's worthwhile to do.
Yeah.
But I think it should still be part of the program, don't you?
The work plan.
So can I also just, two things that we haven't talked about that we were thinking of adding to the program were the airline engagement with the roundtable. And so these are things that, I think some of these things that we have listed in the work plan, we could consider giving points for airlines who come
And discuss it
and
with
discuss
us.
it with the
Yes.
roundtable and have it make some sort of commitment to doing something. So that's a way to kind of keep it in these things in the program and in the work plan without having to do this level of reporting and data collection for things that are not in.
And I would also, real quick, I see you have some, but I would also say that I think the bigger benefit comes from ATC not taking them off the procedure than the slight variations
Of the
FMS of the procedure,
Yes.
right? So, and I see what you're saying, Terry, and I think you're going to notice benefit if they would stop vectoring, essentially. But that's not going to happen very easily because they need to get them out of the way.
Because that's an ATC related problem.
That's an ATC.
Which is why
we can work
use
with them with.
But at night, they should be.
Well, at night, we're trying for them not to
Get them off and
Night
then so use them night.
Right.
Take them over the bay.
So we're addressing the night differently.
Right.
Because we're asking them to use the night procedure rather than this.
I think we all hear.
And I think we've been pretty successful with that already.
I think we all understand how important it would be to change the stick procedure. But what we're hearing in this conversation is that airline pilots, which is what Flight Quiet 2.0 would be geared towards, have very, very little control over that. That it's mainly air traffic control.
Or it's the airline. Airline putting it in that.
putting it in the FBS.
Yeah, how they're
I'm saying
programmed.
that that's probably even less of a thing. So
You're saying the air traffic control wants to expedite these planes and get them out of here.
Which
And
is
that's
why
why they're
they
using
use
it primarily.
Yeah.
that's why they're taking them off the procedure. and turning.
So then the question, I don't know,
That's the
Dan,
big-
do you have any input whether this really should be a work plan item and it's worth the effort or not for Gene's comment here?
It seems like it might be worth being a work plan. So because the night departure procedure, so the night DP doesn't really go into effect for these aircraft until 1 a.m., you might be successful getting a nighttime keep them on the stick procedure where air traffic doesn't vector them off. You know, if that's beneficial, you know, that's really up to the airport because it does, of course, concentrate them all. Because you can kind of see by the tracks that air traffic
Right.
is sending them to their exit fixes sooner, which is dispersing them. So I don't know what's better. But you could consider having a nighttime noise. You're not going to get anything during the day. Not with Oakland. They have to turn these aircraft and you won't get anywhere during the day, but you might get somewhere at nighttime to keep them on the stick longer if that was something you wanted.
Okay, so just for the notes, it's obviously that there is a FMS that may or may not be useful, but then there's an ATC conversation for night.
Right. And we started those conversations.
Yeah.
A couple years ago or more.
Yeah.
And they were willing to not turn as many airplanes.
Okay, so this is out.
But that's a work program and working with agencies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the next one is, and maybe you could help us out with this. It's early turns to arrive at 28 left, right. And the question is this variation you're seeing in the visual an early turn for safety or a pilot request or both?
It's going to be for sequencing. And so if if you can get the R&P procedure, so this could kind of simplify, but basically this is for sequencing. So if air traffic is turning them early, it's because they want to beat another aircraft in. It's not the pilot.
Right.
So this is ATC and for, sequencing. And so we probably cannot incent the pilot because we're directed to do this. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think the pilot's going to have much control in this.
So my sense is this is not a fly quiet program element. I don't think it's even a work plan. We have no,
No
yeah,
control.
because they're doing it for a air traffic management.
Well, we do have the ability to ask NCT to run a report on achieving the 9 mile, having aircraft established at 9 miles on final.
Okay, I'll put it then as a work plan. Again, work plan
I
discussion.
would remove from the work plan because there are things that you can still do. R&Ps aren't occurring much right now because they don't have tools in place to allow them to occur. But if they were all on an R&P arrival, they wouldn't have to do this.
Okay. All right, so not a fly quiet program. They are in work plan. You're gonna have plenty of work plan.
And there is, so we developed a GLS. We did develop a GLS procedure that does this, and there is an RNP procedure being published. And I think it might even come out next month, that will have what's called the down the bay approach. One of the problems with extending it is that you'll end up with more aircraft that go over the peninsula because the further you extend the down the bay, the more it starts to conflict with other aircraft. So it is it's a fine line. That's why you probably do want to see a published procedure where where they're going to turn but where that perfect turn is it needs to be in a work group and worked out.
Okay, so now you got that down, right? What, no fly quiet work plan. So next one is bodega down the bay. Who has control over this? Dan, can you kick us off?
Yeah, there is no down the bay connected to the bodega, and this is a very, very sensitive air traffic issue. They will fight any down the bay connected to the bodega. And that's due to when we first implemented the bodega, it had a down the bay leg. And literally in 1 week, we had more than 13 losses between aircraft. It was very scary, and so they're just going to say no to this one. What then that's how we developed the GLS standalone down the bay, which is now turning into an RNP because of the FAA's reluctance to do GLS. It's now going to just be an RNP for right now. But so what you really, the down the bay, it kind of goes back to the other one. You want a down the bay procedure. I think you're going to get a down the bay procedure, but it will not be tied into the bodega. It's still going to remain air traffic control's decision on who goes there. They won't allow it to be tied into the STAR.
Is it gonna be a noise abatement procedure or no?
It already is, so it will just be now, the good things about it, there's multiple good things about it, but the aircraft will be able to fly it. Right now, it's just an air traffic control vector procedure, so it will be a repeatable, predictable path. The other thing is that there's automation that right before I retired, we developed automation for the controllers that will help them sequence. So they'll know exactly how to sequence to this because it is a known path. The computer can now tell them how to put the plane behind them, how to control the plane behind them so the controller isn't guessing. So there's a lot of, and so we believe that will increase compliance. That was part of the reason we developed that, was to increase compliance with it, because the noise abatement already states that when they can, they're supposed to take them down the bay.
Okay, Marie Jo, do you have any comments on this? It's not fly quiet.
I'm okay with that. I just want monitoring of that, because if it's not monitored, then there is a drift and they all send them to the peninsula. But the average rate, it was 15 years ago, it was about 50% peninsula, 50% down the bay. Then it went all the way down to 25% down the bay. And now we're inching back a little bit to a 33% down the bay. So even though there's still not the GLS, but they should be, we need to monitor that one to make sure that the carriers and ATC also pay attention to that upcoming RNP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna give you a little pushback on that one, Marie Jo. And Dan might be stepping in to do the same thing. But as far as that procedure goes, it's dependent on other airports in the Bay Area and their traffic flows too.
Sure. Yes. Correct. Yeah.
Highly.
Yeah.
And there was a period, and just so you know why it dropped off so significantly, after the Asiana crash, the TRACON, the approach control, prohibited the controllers from putting any heavy aircraft down the bay. And then it was no foreign carriers down the bay. And then, so there was a lot of restrictions, and they slowly got lifted because they were basically a reaction to the Asiana crash.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a no fly quiet program, it's monitoring, and it's a noise abatement program.
Correct.
Okay, now we're at ground engine run-ups. So I think what we
And this
just,
is new. This is a new one. Yeah, this
although
is
it is in the what's it called?
Director's report.
The FAA chart supplement, the ground run-ups.
This is a new addition to the fly quiet.
Yeah, but it's technically it's a requirement as a lessor of the airport to the CZ airlines. It's not a pilot thing, it's a airline, right? Policy. Yeah, so that's why it's not perfect fit for the fly quiet program, because it's not the airlines, it's not the
And
pilot.
it's not even the pilots.
Yeah,
It's the
not the
mechanics.
pilots. Yeah. So it's the airport determines, needs to determine if they're going to fine. You don't fine today, right? If they're I guess that it could be a work plan discussion, whether they should start finding them, but there is a lease,
Yeah.
because it's a lease
Yeah.
thing, not a,
It's on the ground.
not a air
it's not
traffic,
Aircraft in there, air, and anything else.
remember, above the ground.
Isn't it safety procedure?
Well, no, it's noise abatement procedure, because if you read the rules and regulations, we have an air stipulation that you have to be departing within 3 hours of the run.
Yeah.
So if the maintenance crew takes that aircraft out there at 2 a.m., the aircraft doesn't depart until 9 or 10 a.m.,
Gotcha.
then you're eligible for a fine.
So I don't think this splits in the fly quiet round because it's not the pilots. And yeah, so I think it should be a work plan discussion because
I think it's in the flight. It should be in the flight quiet program. I truly believe that, whether it's on the ground or not.
It's
pilots don't have control.
it's true, but this isn't exclusively pilots. If it's something that we can control, and we can incentivize them, and it's a pretty straightforward rule on the 3 hours. They know that. I mean, if it's at night, they're not supposed to do it.
They can get it waived. So if they call in and say, hey, I need to do this run up, I only have the mechanic working now, they'll get it waived. So the one thing we are doing right now is we should have it delivered
So could it?
today is our new ground run up detection equipment. They have updated it for us and they've included a report. So we're supposed to be able to compare that to their calling in to request run-ups and they're doing run-ups.
Do you get data on run-ups? You do.
Absolutely.
So we could actually chart and we could see.
Reports.
That's what we're reporting on now.
Okay. So
As of today.
to Terry's point, is there a way for us to know if they're violating that 3 hour rule?
Get a report. Where it has.
So it'll say that they did a run up at 2 a.m. and they didn't leave till 9 a.m. It'll say they did the run up at 2 a.m. and they didn't leave until 9 a.m.
Is there a location that you can put as part of the lease of where they can do the run up?
We have 3 run-up pads.
Okay, so you have a location.
They can do run-ups at various locations, but 3 primary run-up pads for high power run-ups. That's what we're really looking at, is high power run-ups.
Okay.
So we have a way of tracking it with the report.
Yeah.
This is airline controlled, not pilot controlled. And it's a way to reduce noise. So why not incorporate it in the flight quiet 2.0?
And I think ground-based noise is just a big issue right
It's a
now.
big-
I think we can't ignore it.
Sorry, my mistake. I
Politically,
thought we were only focusing on pilots.
Politically, I don't think we can.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's too important to.
I heard a couple of times.
You can.
Go ahead, Mary Jo.
Yes, I heard a couple of times that if the pilot has no control, it shouldn't be in the FQP, and I don't agree with that because the FQP is rewarding airlines, the carriers. So if it is controlled by the airline, it can be part of the FQP.
That's what I was saying.
Yep. So we'll incorporate it in.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's include this.
Okay, so that's that. All right. Fleet noise quality meeting. So Bert shared this slide with on the fleet noise 24 years. And clearly it's improved nationwide, including over the last 24 years. And the fleet, SFO's fleet score, as you can see, is got a better quality rating than the national. So the question is, does the fleet quality reflect the San Francisco Fly Quiet program or the nationwide fleet modernization trends?
And it's also airlines, not
Yeah.
pilots.
Correct. Can the Fly Quiet program meaningfully influence the fleet noise outcomes? Or
I don't think it does.
We have.
Well,
with Emirates.
Yeah, but
Also-
is it correlation or causation? Because I think that there's like you were talking about, we were talking about the whether the plane's equipment is doing it or we get get to 3,000 feet quicker on a different element here. We change the tax law tomorrow and they're all going to be buying airplanes. Like it's going crazy. If you just give them quick depreciation, you don't change it. They're not, interest rates have a much bigger impact on this than anything else. So so if you chart this, if you see this big jump in here, that was the tax law. That was increased depreciation. You look at equipment and machines throughout every industry in the United States, they all stocked up on capital equipment right at that same time. Airlines were no different. So it's like we see the same graph on, any machinery, telecom, heavy manufacturing, durables, whatever it happens to be. They all have that nice jump in there because people invested then. We did too. But I think in this particular case, I'm not denying that it's putting pressure on them, but there's a CFO back in Chicago for United Airlines who's making this decision whether what they're going to buy on their fleet. And I don't think the fly
But
quiet
it
program
depends what they're putting into this market and where they're going and what those airports are doing and what their standards are.
Right.
It's just like in Europe where they've got a different standard on noise. And so airlines have to meet that standard or they can't fly into that airport.
Yeah, I don't deny that.
So what you're saying is true about their overall fleet. What is different and what fly quiet programs have really moved the needle on is don't operate those here.
Mhm.
Right? San Diego was able to get rid of them. You guys were able to get rid of the noisy ones first. John Wayne was able to get rid of the noisy ones, all because the airlines made a decision. We're going to put them in Chicago. We're going to put them in Seattle. We're not going to put them in San Francisco.
Don't operate the MD-80s here. We don't want.
That's right. You guys got rid of MD-80s before any other airport.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
So even though their fleet overall
Their
purchasing
purchases,
might be different, how they utilize that equipment.
where they deploy.
Is it,
That's a good point.
is the
That's not a
right
bad point.
strategy to look at all the planes overall who are quieter versus the ones you're trying to get rid of? I know that sounds odd, but there is, a lot of planes that are in the bad category versus averaging them into the whole fleet.
Well, there's fewer and fewer in the bad category.
But it's
Yeah.
still the problem, right? I mean,
Many of these fleets are fairly young.
Why is this? Why is their scores drifting downward lately? By the way, in the last few years.
I think it's just caught up with the track. And we're seeing status quo at the moment.
Could it be more? Could be more cargo too. Maybe.
Yeah, we are
Amazon, that sort of thing.
pushing for more cargo. We're building some pretty significant cargo facilities at the moment. Warehousing.
so one gotcha I will say is that departures benefit more than arrivals on the fleet noise. And so there is, I'm not saying it, I'm just saying generally it's important to make that a distinction because it's not that everyone benefits equally. And I think there's a bit of
Would you want to
confusion.
separate it? You can
Yeah,
separate it.
let's separate it because I think the arrivals, our issue is,
But doesn't every plane that come in go out again?
No,
Yeah,
what
it's-
I'm saying is that they have different arrival noise levels than
yeah,
departure noise
they have a
levels.
different arrival noise,
Some-
how they're flying.
Some are louder on arrival
Yes.
and quieter on departure. Some are
Correct.
quieter on departure and
Yeah.
louder.
Yes.
Quieter on arrival.
But I mean, departures are typically louder.
Yeah.
Decibel wise than arrivals.
Yes, and you're experiencing more of the
Actually, that's
benefit of a quieter plane because they're louder. Yeah,
Right.
out departure, exactly.
Also, that's starting to be less and less obvious. 20 years ago, departures were always louder. For instance,
Make your teeth rattle loud.
our client in Louisville, where they have a UPS hub, so they have planes coming in and out all day, mostly all night. People have noticed that actually the arrivals are louder than the departures. And
They
that's
can be
because
correct. Yeah,
They come down at that slope,
Yes.
where they can get up and out a lot.
Yes,
quicker.
right.
that's why the issue.
So it's the time and the duration versus.
Well,
And
it's
how
just
they're
the way-
flying.
How, 'cause
How-
they're all what we call dirty when they
Yeah.
arrive,
Yeah.
which makes the airframe makes a lot of noise on arrival. It makes almost no noise on departure. It's
I
all
think,
engine.
Marie Jo, we can move on from this. I think the last question is, I'm for different arrival and departure noise. What do you think?
What's your question?
Jean mentioned, let's separate the difference between arrival and departure noise for the fleet.
On the fleet, there is no as far as I know, I've never seen any ratings, national ratings on the fleet noise quality on arrivals.
We're
So-
trying to figure out how to.
Yeah, but how would
yeah,
you do? So how would you measure? How would you measure that?
Well, if you look at our makeup for our fleet noise quality, we have the 3 measurement spectrum for each category of that aircraft: takeoff noise, sideline noise, and overflight. And
Okay.
if you split those up, you can get your numbers.
That would be useful, because right now fleet noise is usually just certification.
Well,
Noise.
it's all, it could still be certification,
Yeah.
because you have arrival, departure, and sideline.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you
What are
could do an
using now?
arrival noise quality, and you could do a departure noise quality.
Okay.
I
But
think-
still, I would like to understand how would you do that on arrivals?
Okay, let's take it offline, because
Yeah.
yeah, let's take it offline. Okay. All right,
So we are including this.
yes.
Okay.
And it is airlines, so just for the record.
I'll stand corrected to my objection.
This is one. So
Okay, noise exceedance rating.
We actually need the elements, so it's like not a big concession. We need elements here in the program.
So Bert, in the chart supplement, it said that the noise exceedance ratings is on the preferred runway use and complying with gap and shoreline. Is it beyond that, or is it those areas?
when we talk to the airlines about how to succeed in our Fly Quiet program,
Yeah.
we've always told them, don't operate a heavy aircraft at night on the wrong runway and loudly. You can ring the bell 4 different times. And if you go over many noise monitors, you can do it multiple times just in exceedance. So we tell the airlines, try to operate on the preferred runway as quietly as possible and using the procedures that will give you the best benefit. And if they do that, they can actually score fairly well.
Let me propose some understanding. So you're doing departures and arrivals at all the monitor locations, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So for some of the Fly Quiet elements, does it make sense, the ones that we've discussed, to do a noise exceedance ratings for in those elements, as opposed to, and it might be just the way you package it, but obviously you're looking at gap, oceanic, or whatever. You're doing noise exceedance ratings for those particular procedures, correct?
We don't do them by procedure now.
So
Noise
that's,
exceedance ratings are just noise exceedance ratings.
Either.
Yeah, you ring the bell or you don't.
does it make sense to look at it though, at a procedure, so that you understand, you know what I mean, like what?
Well, that's based on the conversation I just had a moment ago with you. So if we're talking about an airline who frequently uses the wrong runway, wrong aircraft, and rings the bell multiple times, that's somebody we should probably look at and have a conversation with. If we have another carrier that can do it on a different runway, using maybe a different aircraft or even the same one, and not ring the bell, that's one we should pat on the back. So we could find the ones that have multiple violations.
Is
versus
it,
the ones that don't.
Rectified or whatever to volume, to correct it to that, like
Yeah.
inflation?
We definitely have some math going on in there that levels the playing. field.
Levels of playing.
We
field,
had.
better.
We just had.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
guess
because there may be a cargo provider who flies 10 flights and that's it, versus United, who has, thousands.
Exactly.
Is
So
there double counting between us looking at these, all the things we have here, and then also doing this? I guess which is all the monitors for anything that's over it, noise exceedance, versus we're looking at different procedures and behavior of those procedures.
Yes. Especially if you have a carrier fly over a lot of noise monitors and they do it loudly, they're gonna get caught.
Yeah, I think this would be worth having a future meeting on, just review the results. These are important, you know what I mean? Of having all these,
What's the
things,
decision
yeah.
here? Is to include this or not, or to
Yeah, they have it
just the
now,
noise exceedance rating
all monitors, right?
We report on all noise monitors for all flights.
for all airlines?
I think it's, I don't know.
But yeah, so the thing is, this current noise exceedance rating, you're averaging everything across all procedures, all aircraft, etc. And I don't see how you can get any meaningful information to an airline after
I don't
that.
think it's specific
Yeah,
enough.
that's
Yeah,
what
it's not specific enough because it's all averaged. So, in the fact that if you have, specific procedures in the FQP program, then if you want to put some noise exceedance rating or noise level or whatever, then put it in that FQP element in the scoring. You don't need a separate element just on noise exceedance rating. That's my suggestion.
I think you do. And the reason I say that is because when you look at a given carrier, if they tend to perform more poorly than a neighboring carrier, even when averaged, that says something. And so that lends to, we need to have a conversation.
Well, I think it'd be useful to look at the data to say who's scoring high in this and do we think it's relevant?
Can I make a suggestion
Yeah.
so we could sort of move forward?
Yeah.
Let's keep this one on the bubble.
Yeah.
You made a really good point, I think, Bert. You make a lot of good points, I think. But let's keep this one on the bubble. Depending upon how many elements we've got in the Fly Quiet program,
Yeah.
let's see if we may very well need to put more meat on the bones here.
Yeah.
And include it. If we've got enough, maybe not. But I think that, let's see, this one to me is sort of more kind of on the bubble because it's kind of a summary catch-all. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It's fine, but I feel like we might be catching them on the other elements and that this will catch them again. Nothing wrong with that.
We do have one proposal for a noise exceedance rating because when you look at all of the areas, you don't have a lot of like East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, Atherton, the one that we kind of down the bay that got jettisoned, those communities. So to do some type of noise exceedance rating, which addresses the 3 procedures that are not captured anywhere here in the program, which is a peninsula arrivals noise exceedance rating.
So I'll just suggest again, let's keep it on the bubble. Let's see where we are
Okay.
and we can include it or not. I just
Okay.
don't know how else to.
I think it's really important to look at both arrivals and departures.
Yes.
And not segregate them out as more or less important because
Yes.
they both happen for every aircraft that comes in there.
Right. I think this is an arrivals coverage, and I think once we summarize, we'll see that there isn't a lot of arrivals coverage. Okay. Believe it or not, everybody, we are at the proposed next steps.
Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say, we did it was a while ago, not too awful long ago, a Fly Quiet video. Professionally done by Kevin Mullen, his crew. And so that, while it's evolved over time, it did address each of the categories. I think it'd be worth us looking at.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I think
I
when
wish I would have seen that at the beginning before
Yeah,
we started all
when I
this.
say arrivals, though, I'm saying when we look at which cities are affected, I think that the
It's-
coverage on the arrivals for cities is less.
Probably is somewhere.
So,
It's not a hard and fast rule, but it seems like arrivals affect the peninsula cities as you're coming in and the
Yes.
the departures
Right.
where we are now
So-
and out to Pacific.
so yeah, it's not just departures and
general.
arrivals, as Terry pointed out. It's like, what if two of those cities don't get anything? You know what I mean? But they are getting affected, but they don't have an element. So I think it's a coverage question, not just general categories. So,
Well, that's why the Boston City Metro came in.
right, but that's
Kept
Foster
picking
City.
up, yeah.
They got nothing
Right.
before.
I'm all for that.
They fought like heck. Said, we don't know what, but we want something.
Well, I support it. It's just like why I support.
And their mayor was the chair of the roundtable.
Not time. So we went and evaluated as much as we could, came back with, we can evaluate this, and they said, we'll take it.
Well, I think we should be cognizant of that because when we get back to the roundtable, they should realize that there is coverage of the people that are sitting around the table. So I think that's an important piece. Okay, so
So where are we?
we actually have 2 slides left. Woohoo! We have the proposed next steps, which may not take long. And then we have just an example of what we wrote up, which we haven't all reviewed and finalized, but just as an idea of follow-up for the one potential, the Fly Quiet program from workshop 1, to sense of what the next steps would have to be just on that one. Okay, so proposed next steps. Obviously summarize the preliminary assessment of the elements, which we did a little bit better on the meeting. Follow up on questions that came up for the Fly Quiet specific ones that we know we want in, or we're thinking of having in. So that's workshop 1 was around shoreline, and then whatever we defined today. So again, that's the second bullet. The third is, while it's fresh in our head, we should document everything we wrote about work plan ideas for the future, because it's kind of hard to remember that. And then a request to see where the document is that says what the noise abatement procedures are, because this kind of came up throughout the sessions, that they are noise abatement, they aren't noise abatement. So is that publicly available? I did go through the south, believe it or not, called the southwest sector of the chart supplement, and they are not in the noise
Some
abatement
are.
procedure.
Some are built in, they're right there, you just don't see it as specifically noise abatement.
Yeah, especially because this is Fly Quiet programs.
Well, that was done by us.
Yes,
We did that.
there's no other ones that are,
No, they don't have. We have an agreement with the FAA.
yes.
They have put that into their 7110.65,
Okay.
which is their SOP, standard operating procedure. The last chapter they have in there is noise abatement. I think it's the very last
So
one.
my question, Bert, can we see that? Can we see what the noise abatement procedures are? Because they're mentioned throughout the discussion.
I have an old copy.
Okay, perfect.
I don't have a current.
I'll take the old one.
We used to be able to say, hey, maybe we have a copy, and we got it. And then it became, no.
Well, the reason why is if we're going to look at the noise abatement procedures and want to report on some of them, we need to say what they are. I mean,
No argument.
yeah.
So we've got about 20 minutes left here. So my suggestion is we need to decide on how we're moving forward here, because the goal is to eventually make a presentation to the full roundtable, get them to bless it. What are the incentives going to be? We've been talking about that for a long time. I assume it's not going to be dinner at Lowry's or what was the other one that you mentioned, the Golden Steer. But I think you guys have been taking lots of notes. I have not, and they're pretty complicated. And they're a little confusing, if I do say so, just looking over people's shoulders. So what we need to do, I think, first is distill down and titrate and fill out that chart that we have that says which bucket are they falling into, where if first of all, we need to identify just those that are in the Fly Quiet, and then what are the elements that are for sure in it, at least on our opinion. What are the ones that we need the full roundtable to like, yes or no? And that may be the ones we were just talking about, just this last, the noise
Well, I think
exceedance.
Whole roundtable needs to say yes to all of them.
Yes.
So our
this committee's
needs to make the firm recommendation. Don't leave things up to. All right, you're probably right. You're definitely right.
first forever.
Silly me for even like giving them the discretion. But we've spent 90 minutes in the first meeting. We spent 2 hours tonight, and they're going to spend 10 minutes on it, and they're not going to do anything.
So does this group think that we're at a point to make that recommendation to staff to come and the airport come back with a program?
Yeah.
Or do you think we're not ready to make that?
I
I
think
do.
there's some outstanding questions on some of them before we can do that. That's why the last slide I had, just to give you an idea for shoreline, this was one of the elements we talked at last meeting, the outstanding elements before we can conclude shoreline was,
You're on the shoreline of the.
yeah,
Slide.
shoreline, the
Can we
next
go to
slide.
the next slide.
So there was a question at the end, and was trying to get some data from SFO and then some confirmation to the pilots about trunking and stuff. So that, there's some actions like that on some of these.
There are, but I think we need to start putting pencil to paper, at least on getting the document ready. I agree, we can plug this in, but I don't want to wait for this before we like start drafting
Right,
the
I think there are
document.
two things, so what and the how.
Yes,
Yes.
And I think we can come to pretty quickly for the what.
yes.
What's on the fly program?
What the element
Now,
is.
how are we gonna rate them? That, I think, is where you need to,
And I want to see how many elements there are.
Right.
I just don't, I know
that's why I think the what is relatively simple.
yeah, we were at 13. I'm guessing we're at 4 or 5. or
Well, I
something
think we
like that.
need a little process check because originally I mistakenly thought we were only going to focus on pilots. So we took some of them
We added
out.
yeah.
Some of them are noise abatement procedures that you may not want to incent, but you should track. You know,
Well, we
see
talked
if it's
about the
been-
fleet.
I don't think we took anything out that wasn't airline controlled, in my opinion. I would have stopped it, just like I tried to. stop
Fleet was the
us.
one that was sort of like, it's not
I
pilot. but
think
it's
the
airline.
notes were confusing. I mean, the notes that I took at the last meeting, I'm not in your mental, calculation, but in terms of the way we were taking notes was, like I said earlier, which is,
Yeah.
was it pilot or not pilot? So I think,
You made a great point that it may not be their whole worldwide fleet, but it may impact on SFO. I think that was the point you guys made, and I think that's a perfectly valid point.
so, but what I'm saying is, do you want part of Fly Quiet program though to be some of these keeping track of the noise abatement adherence by ATC, or it's separate?
I
I'm
think
just
if-
asking
If
for-
it's under ATC, it has to be separate, because fly quiet program are those things that are pilot or airline.
Well, there is a little one that's a half breed in here.
ATC tends to be more work plan.
Right,
There was one that was half.
right,
the
because the
nighttime.
pilot had perhaps a little bit of say. So
Yeah.
we kept
Was
it
that the
in.
3,000 feet, getting to 3,000 feet? I'm not sure.
No, it was
It was,
the early
After
turn.
that.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
So, can I just make a suggestion,
Yeah, sure.
process wise, to move, all of this forward and just look for full roundtable approval? So the roundtable does have a 5-year strategic plan that needs to be approved. And that needs to be, the TWG needs to start vetting that plan. And so, I think 2 things can happen at one time. So maybe what we're doing is creating the Fly Quiet program and then a separate document that is the strategic plan that has some of these things in here that we're saying are work plan items. I'm thinking time-wise, if we have a Fly Quiet program that gets a document that's routed and, we can all email each other and say, no, we decided to take this out and let's track changes or something like that, that's finalized to go to the full roundtable for our August meeting. And then what we could have is an August TWG meeting that focuses on the work plan. And that's kind of moving us
That's
forward.
a 5-year
That's the
strategic.
5 years.
So basically, the next roundtable meeting takes place in August. Is that correct?
Takes place in August, and that will be an approval for the Fly Quiet program. And between now and the mail out for that meeting, we'll be working on that document and just finalizing what that looks like.
What the elements are.
What the elements are.
So could I ask, I don't
Yeah.
want to be any more out of school than I already am. Darlene, you've got these notes and they're your slides. Can you put something together here, bring it to us so that we can sort of like, and I think we need to ultimately have staff package that up
Yeah.
for the full roundtable, but you've got a whole bunch of notes here that I think would be really useful to sort of like package those together for us so that we can actually take them to the next step.
Yeah, I think what Darlene maybe could present is a summary of
Okay.
all of these, and that can be an attachment, and then there's some
And
sort
then
of
we'll
like
put
cover
together
memo that's approval for, and usually what I do is a little more of a program document.
Yeah.
And then the attachment so that when it goes to the full roundtable, the members can see this is all the work we've done, this is who's in control of what, here's what the ask is, and then I did talk to Bert about some of the incentives. And so we were talking about what have we done in the past? And it's typically just been like an award of some sort, like, presented at a meeting. And Bert and I talked about,
Loose sites.
yeah, some of the, we can't do the monetary incentives, but I think in this current day and age, there are some marketing things that we may be able to do
Recognition.
that have incentives. There's not a actual monetary incentive to the airport, but there are things that the airline, that SFO may be willing to do. So maybe posters inside the airport that say, you know, United flies quiet, something like that,
Things they can point to.
things they can point to. So
Yeah.
Bert and I kind of talked about that. We'll have to talk to Doug about doing some of those incentives, but those might be things that are a little more,
I like that.
Well, the other thing that we can do is, rather than have it at our regular roundtable meeting and having it, you know, at the Dave Chakouti Center, we could do something that's a little more stylized and invite roundtable members and the public and the media to something that's on airport site in one of their, you know, fancy conference room places.
That's a nice idea.
I think so.
That'll really raise the profile.
social
Exactly.
media posts, you know, Instagram, Twitter feed, that all those kind of things that are.
We didn't discuss that this year, but I know Chairman O'Connell had some suggestions, and I feel strongly about it, is figuring out how to incent the airlines and more of an active, not sitting at the meeting, coming to the meeting. It's a discussion, problem solving, or training their people how to do something. That's what the New York people did. So when should that come up? Should that come up in our summary, or how do you see that working on the roadmap?
Yeah, so that was actually a category we were thinking of including in the program. So
Yeah.
we were calling it community engagement, where the airlines would get points and incentive for, I think Bert, we said 1 point per meeting. And then if they made a presentation, they would get additional points. We didn't fully,
Yeah,
vet
that's
that,
my
but-
only question is when should we have that discussion?
And how weighted should it be in the entire
Yeah,
amount of points that are available so that you.
Yeah, and so we talked about this too, and it's sort of like, if you give them, this is a Heisenberg principle, if you give them if you're trying to measure something like that, I'll send you my lowest level people to the meeting,
Yes.
collect lots of points.
Yeah.
I would rather have one operations manager attending one meeting would be really important.
yes.
Sending a bunch of lackeys, sorry for the term, that was a, but sending a bunch of people who have and collecting lots of points is meaningless to me. So I'm actually,
Discussion with
we
the,
need-
the things we discussed is really a 10, right?
Quick question.
but I just profile one Terry was suggesting.
How long does the Fly Quiet program go for? 2.0? Is it like for a set period throughout the year, and we do a quarterly check-in with the airlines? And based off of where they rank, you know, when they
Yeah, when do we give the awards?
Once a
Well,
year.
as long as they hold their meetings.
You-
yeah, it's an annual program.
It's annual, but as far as
We
what
monitor,
we want to report out on,
we can monitor it
we could do monthly, we could do
every meeting,
twice a year, we could do
quarterly.
quarterly.
So I think right now the program is, there's quarterly Fly Quiet program reports that SFO drafts. And they're put on SFO's website. And so we could, you know, marry that with the roundtable and have updates every quarter. And then, so 4 updates a year, basically 1 annual award at the end of the year.
Is the plan then to discuss the awards in the TWG before they,
Put it on table for
Yeah.
discussion.
right?
I don't know that we have to, I think what I was thinking was that this is the deep dive into the procedures. And that once that was done, because we're planning for, and I think Stephen and I talked about this, about the only item that's going in August is going to be the Fly Quiet program. So it should be.
So we've
very
got to make
quick.
that, we've got to make that. done.
Yeah, so if we have a quick overview, 10 minutes, people have questions about the procedures, those are vetted already, will be have vetted. And then the rest of the conversation could be incentives and.
So they can't be monetary, so it's gotta be all PR, it's gotta be publicity.
It's recognition.
It's gotta be the recognition.
When is the next meeting in August?
I
Yes.
think it's the 4th, so what we can.
So we
do-
have the month of July to finish this up, because it's July
Right.
1st.
This group
tomorrow.
needs to think about it, because it's hard to, given all this thought process about encouraging them and having the dialogue, that would be hard for the roundtable to understand why that is more important than sitting at the roundtable.
Well, that's why we did this for a year.
Yeah.
That's the time we thought we were
stopped.
done.
Yes.
We said, okay, we're ready to close.
We
out.
stopped.
Oh, but I have comments. And it was like, okay.
Yeah, we started.
And then we said, okay, we're ready to close it now. Oh, but I have comments.
Well, that's why I'm trying to.
Yep, go ahead.
Yep, so we've got a 1 month period. We've got 4 weeks before the meeting.
Okay.
So I'm going to suggest in week 1, you got to put together your notes, package it up,
Yeah.
summary, etc. Week 2, we've got to get that. So this is fast. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to put the pressure on
Yeah.
the people who are on the call and people who are here. I'm just trying to like move this along so we can package this up.
Yeah.
It's got to be in staff's hands the second week. So you can put something together. We got to review it again so that we can sort of like bless it as a TWG. We don't have to necessarily have a meeting to do that. You can route it, right? That's not a violation of anything.
No, I can route it, and I think
The third week,
concurrently, at the same time, I can work with the clerk on on incentives, and what we can do is package 3, or, and say, here are 4 ideas, here are recommendations, and let the roundtable members vote on those. Pick one.
This
and we'll vote.
TWG.
well, per Gene's point, is we want to put as much of a bow on this as we can and have them bless it and move
So I'm
on.
gonna push back a
So
little
let's-
because I think the TWG needs to be actively involved in the awards proposals around.
Well, we will be when it
Yeah,
comes
you'll
back
see
to
it.
us.
Everyone will see it
It's
as
going to
part of the
reroute it back
package.
to us.
So just a quick suggestion on the incentives, real quick, since we're, I put the question, how is like why 2.0 go? Obviously that's the program we're rolling out. We talked about check-ins with reports. My suggestion for consideration, quarterly report with the airlines where they come, have a representative sit at the round table. As we go through the presentation, they can see where they rank, so who gets shamed. And then we can track if they change their procedures, how they move up compared on the list, kind of like a closed feedback loop system where they come in, they're actively participating, they're getting the report, they're seeing what they're doing, and then they're making changes as they progress.
If I may,
Yeah.
on that, we've done the lists before. You've seen the size of the screens in the meeting room. They're tiny.
Yeah.
For
There's
reading.
a lot of
lists.
airlines.
So what we did is we knocked it down to top 5, bottom 5.
Yep.
And that way you see the movement. Bottom 5 typically stayed the same. Top 5, it moved a little bit. And so that's, I think, where we actually are doing the talking to. Vanessa and I talked about maybe for the first year, we kind of run the program offline. That way
Before you
we're,
bring them in.
we're observing it, seeing how it's going
I
and
think that's a great
figuring
idea.
out what might blow up in our face, things like that, rather than just go public with it and watch it fail.
Gotcha. So that way the first year is kind of a litmus test where
Yeah, let's see where they are. Let's see who the top 5 and bottom
And we're
5
also
is.
adjusting points and seeing what goes there.
Let me check in. Marie Jo, can you hear what we're saying?
Yeah, I'm hearing some of it, definitely. Which do you want to probe on a particular aspect?
Well, we're kind of wrapping up, so I want to make sure if you have any comments, we're going to put together.
I do like the proposal from Paul that we have here 1 month to finish this off. And I believe, yes, we need to put our notes together, get back together and discuss, scoring, incentive, etc. I'm not sure, again, for me, the value of the program will be demonstrated if you have a good rationale on why you put these elements and what's achievable. But, so I think go ahead.
I think we're talking with Marie Jo, that there is, the shoreline thing, we didn't resolve whether the pilot do certain things. So Bert, I think we need to follow up. How do you want to deal with that?
So we're not going to be able to do that too.
Yes.
So I'm just taking a big macro view, which is what people want to do.
Yes.
And I just think this divides up very nice and neatly into 4 weeks before the next meeting. And I recognize it's a holiday week coming up and it's going to be a pain in the neck, but week 1, again, we just need you to take your notes and summarize it and bring things back as much as you can, as much granularity as you can put into it.
Yeah.
That'll help staff, that'll help Vanessa and Bert and Jean and everybody else.
With Bert, Jean, and Dan before we bring that forward, just to make sure we're all.
Yeah.
Okay.
However you want
I think that would be ideal.
Create a package you can put together. Easier
I
than
don't
just
think
for-
more any open things or
The
misinterpretations.
second week But some staff have to put it together in a package. It's gonna get routed for us, but we'll bless it and make any changes that we need. And then it's gonna be, because 1 week before the meeting, it's gotta be ready for prime time.
We'll draft it and make sure that the other panelists were involved so that we can get.
You can, for Vanessa, I think. would be-
One suggestion, a thing we talked about much earlier was once we have a draft of that SQP, because it's targeted really at pilots or airlines, for the pilot portion, we also wanted to have this discussion of a quick validation with one pilot, with one captain. When would this happen?
We didn't get that done. We did. We ideally wanted that and we didn't check that box. So we haven't been able to do that. I think Fan has been particularly helpful in at least bringing to us what the perspective would be. And I think that, do they have an influence or not? And that was invaluable.
Further, I could move it off to
Talk with the airlines, as far as captains, might be a management pilot.
Oh.
It's typically captains, but.
The 7:30.
Another thing they did, we share out the 2020 version of the 7110.65, which is the NCT standard operating. Because I've asked for it some run time. It's arrival separated by airport, arrivals, departures, and runways. So when you look at see exactly what you're talking about. Oh, hey, that's where that comes from. But keep in mind, you see a lot of references in here to like, hey, between the hours of 2200 and 0700 local, 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., utilize the quiet bridge approach. Can't do that now. So this document's going to change if it hadn't already. And
Well, it's like we said earlier, if we're for every
I don't
check.
we'll
Can I also just confirm the incentive conversation? I'm packaging that with Bert and adding it to the full.
Yeah. And then everybody's give us some choices.
all for sure. The roundtable will post the winners on the website. That's an easy one. You can guarantee that.
We would love to have something in the airport.
I'm not.
That's pretty. Yes.
Say that. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I'll get it.
Your banners in here, you know, those type of things, you know, where, well, we'll see. That's something.
Yep.
Yes, that's true. Because we did this.
So
Yes, and I think a really important part of this program, maybe the key part of this program was something Terry said earlier, and that is community engagement and publicity. And I think this has to be announced with some sort. I mean, if we put all of our effort into fanfare, it'll pay off. If nobody knows about this thing, which is kind of the way it's been in the past, nobody. And I think
It's not necessarily the meeting of the roundtable approves it is where we.
no,
The
that's not.
We come back with a schedule.
Yeah.
We're rolling it out. We're still in the. Because a lot of it's gonna be beta testing, so we're not really knowing what. Exactly.
Information aspect of this is going to be, it could be getting some TV stations or a newspaper or two.
As a side, I am not gonna be present for the office. So I'll, someone else did. Comments. I don't leave until the 27th day I'll stay.
Okay.
So for this meeting, usually we have a TWD report out. I can include that in the chair's notes, so Steve can do that. And then I think probably for the actual presentation, that would be a word. Just, you know, maybe intro and say the roundtable is the typical, we've been reviewing this, we have 2 workshops, we have maybe to say 4, transit to Burke, and then
Very slow and sort of summarizes what we're doing in all the meetings
And that's just so we're on the same page. Do you mind sending out like the roadmap, like in 1 week, but you're gonna have a workshop, everyone to get items
for the meeting and deadlines. Diane, I can work on that today. Everybody.
You've got to queue up the strategic plan for that August meeting too. So that's us. That's the TWG. You won't have to worry about it.
So it sounds like the incentives that we're working towards, is it something more like in 6 months after we start the program, we start talking in more concrete terms about what the incentives are? But right now, we're just telling people, here's the,
But it's going to be more public recognition, I think, than loose ends.
because it gives me a little more time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Well, just kind of what we know not to.
Yeah, the roundtable budget and what, because the roundtable does pay for some of the awards.
Yeah.
And so if we're switching that from like a desk award to a banner or something, and then working with SFO,
And the airport director can be very helpful in
or
helping us
something,
figure
some
that
kind
out.
of something.
I'm
What
sure,
can we do inside the airport in the employee section?
I was gonna say.
But that's later. I mean, we don't need this.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
well, this is TBD anyway.
So-
We'll be asking Doug and. Thumbs up or thumbs down.
Some of the Seattle banners.
So,
Seattle.
so I want to thank everybody for a robust and informational discussion. I'd like to now open the floor for public comments. And do we have any members who'd like to make a public comment on this item?
Yes, we have Jennifer on Zoom. Jennifer, please go ahead.
Thank you. I will offer that visibility on what is noise abatement or not, and noting what is not on the Fly Quiet program is key. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. As well as substantively measuring if this program helps or not, because the biggest critique of Fly Quiet programs around the country is that they are very heavy on PR to create the appearance of doing something. And so there has to be sort of, that gap needs to be addressed by SFO as well. My broader point about Oceanic is that an airline captain shared how arriving from Asia, a pilot is tired, and being able to fly an optimized procedure is what they prefer, what pilots prefer. And they know how much more noise is created by flying dirty or when ATC vectors. So we have situations where all interests are aligned, including congressional interests, that a lot of this infrastructure was meant to reduce fuel burn and noise. And it matters to track what is actually happening. I did not see enough about the reporting that is necessary to track compliance or procedures. And since what is noise abatement and what is not even clear. So it's crucial to get visibility of the documentation of what is noise abatement or not, and to have the appropriate reports. I mean, I consider NextGen to be a noise abatement program to a great degree. So it should be a very big picture measurement as well. You need a lot more aggregate data. A lot of what I heard was, well, we really don't know. And only talking or discussing things with FAA or airlines is not enough, because you really need to have data, documentation, and tracking. Also, just want to clarify something at the beginning. Darlene noted that a public comment was made last time about asking for more step down. It was the opposite. I was addressing optimized procedures. I know that thank you, answered the question that I was asking. So that's okay, but I just want it to be clear that the step down is dirty flying. It's noisier. And I have a whole lot more to say, but it's very difficult to do it in this format. So I think the best thing is to see what you have after you've produced everything. And then that way the public can have an opportunity to, I hope you will give the public an opportunity to weigh in about what, to answer questions, and also to possibly entertain some things from the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else online?
There are no other public comments.
Any comments from the subcommittee members? Announcements?
When is your last meeting?
As far as
CWG
when I go
or
off,
Roundtable. Yeah, when do you go off?
I want to say December 12th
You
is,
still have, you won't be at the August meeting. You said you were gonna be here for August. There's one October you will be
I
at.
will be here.
And our December.
Just wanna make sure, Terry. We love you. We don't
And
want
maybe,
to,
I think
And
December.
December also.
we're not gonna let you leave quietly.
I told you that
Um,
also.
So if there's no further business, thank you all, again, for the robust discussion and everyone who joined tonight. And special thanks to our staff and technical team for all the work behind the effort. We are adjourned. 8:07.
Thanks, Dan.
Did it in 2 hours. So what Diane and I would do, we'll send out a summary with dates that,